Good afternoon. My name is David Savage, and I am the Associate Vice President for the UK and the Irish markets here at Geotab. Thank you for joining the session today to discuss how data can be used to influence behaviour. The focus of this presentation will be on how we at Geotab are using data to support commercial fleets in delivering against their sustainability goals. For those of you who are unfamiliar with Geotab, I'd like to spend just a few minutes introducing who we are and what we do. So Geotab was established in Canada in the year 2000 by the Coors family with the very clear vision to improve safety and enhance the productivity of commercial fleets. Our telematics solutions allow businesses to automate operations by integrating vehicle data and other key data assets. Our solution can work in all sizes of vehicles, from e-cargo bikes right the way through to heavy goods vehicles. And key to our growth has been embracing an open platform approach to fleet management solutions. What this means in reality is that the end customer owns their own data with unfiltered access and can be viewed whenever, however, and given to whomever they like. This open platform approach lays the groundwork for informed decision-making and business efficiency. When it comes to data, on a daily basis, we process over 40 billion separate data points. And over 21 years since Geotab was founded, I'm pleased to say that we are still privately owned with no outside investment and are now the global leader in connected vehicles and fleet telematics, with our solutions being found in over 2.3 million vehicles across the globe, stretching from London to the Arctic Circle. As well as working across multiple vehicle types, we also work with customers with fleets of all sizes and across a very broad spectrum of different industries. So our smallest end customer operates a fleet of 2 vehicles, and our largest end customer a fleet of over 200,000 vehicles. Our customer base of 44,000 is spread across 130 different countries, and each of these customers rely on our solution to operate their fleets, as well as support them on what has truly become a global journey towards fleet electrification and sustainability. Just some of the end customers that rely on Geotab include well-known brands such as PepsiCo, Telefonica, Enterprise, and we're also proud to say that we are the sole provider of telematics to the state of California. And as I referenced earlier, we are very much a data-driven company. However, we firmly believe that before data can be used to influence decisions, it must first be understood. Our commercial vehicle recovery dashboard is an interesting use case for this. Just over a year ago, we launched this in partnership with one of our competitors, and this dashboard analyzed data from over 3 million connected vehicles around the world to help visualize the impact of COVID-19 on commercial vehicle activity and also support on the strategic recovery efforts. Within the UK specifically, we saw a 50% drop in commercial vehicle activity almost immediately, as soon as the first lockdown hit. And whilst for the most part recovery was slower in the UK than across mainland Europe, there was one area of the commercial vehicle sector that experienced exponential growth. This was in the last mile delivery sector, which has seen over 50% growth in the last year. I guess this is somewhat understandable, as we were all so very reliant on home deliveries for even the most basic of items. But as we look to exit lockdown for what will hopefully be the last time, COVID has left a lasting impact in a few key areas. So firstly, last mile delivery is very much likely to remain a necessity for many, resulting in an increasing number of commercial vehicles on the road. And secondly, consumers and businesses alike paused for reflection and focused much more on the environmental impact of their activities and ultimately doing the right thing. This was even before the ban on the sale of internal combustion engine vehicles was announced at the end of 2020. And how this focus on the environment and doing the right thing has played out in the consumer space is we're seeing a marked decline in vehicle ownership, particularly in urban areas, and a shift to car sharing and micro-mobility as 2 key examples. And the facts facing fleets can't be ignored. The growth in last mile delivery necessitating a need for more vehicles, The recognition that close to 30% of greenhouse emissions come from the transport sector, and the fleet sustainability targets, very much driven by the government initiatives, are really guiding fleets to a much more needed transition towards electric vehicles. But whilst EV transition is very much the gold standard on the route to sustainability, there very much needs to be a pause for breath. Not all vehicles in a fleet can be transitioned just yet, as the makes and models available are still to catch up with the needs of the market. But just because an entire fleet is not EV, that doesn't mean that there can't be sustainability improvements within the remaining petrol and diesel vehicles. This is often overlooked, yet data and technology can lead to significant improvements. Here are a few quick wins for fleet operators. So firstly, reducing vehicle idling. Idling means that the engine is running whilst the vehicle is stationary, so for example, when making a delivery. Idling burns fuel, which is both an environmental impact as CO2 emissions are still being created, and also an economic impact as fuel is still being burned. So for example, a vehicle idling for an hour can burn up to 4.5 litres of fuel. Yet through telematics, vehicle idling can be reduced. And a good benchmark for fleets would be to aim to get an individual vehicle's idle time down to around 10% over the course of a working day. Data can drive the insights that will lead to improvements, either through in-vehicle driver alerts or to support on driver coaching. Secondly, reducing aggressive driving. So aggressive driving can take many forms, such as speeding, harsh braking, harsh acceleration, and even cornering. And this is an important area where CO2 emissions are correlated to fuel consumption. CO2 emissions are increased by around 50% when aggressive driving patterns are evident. But looking at our own experience, we have a few tools that can result in improvements. An example would be our driver scorecard, which allows individual driver performance to be compared to that of the overall fleet. And using these insights, fleet managers can engage in gamification to incentivize good performance. And finally, route optimization. So positive route management should save on travel time and miles driven, resulting in reduced fuel burn and consequently emissions. Now, it's important to point out that a successful EV transition strategy needs to be a marriage of both EV transition and improving sustainable usage of the remaining petrol and diesel vehicles. Now, let's have a look at the EV transition challenge in just a little bit more detail. And when it comes to fleet electrification, there was an interesting piece of research undertaken by PwC in 2020 that highlighted just how far there is to go, with some of the largest fleets in the UK having electrified only a single-digit percentage of their fleets. This is also mirrored in the public sector, with only 8% of government fleets having transitioned to electric vehicles. Now let's explore two of the fundamental stages in the journey to fleet electrification: go electric and operate electric. At each stage of the journey, the data and the insights provided by a telematics platform will help ensure success. Now let's start looking at going electric. So fleet transition cannot be delivered through a one-size-fits-all approach. Personalization and customization are key. In practice, this means that there needs to be a deep understanding of how the existing fleet of petrol and diesel vehicles are operating. It's important to know each vehicle's duty cycle and its driving pattern to understand whether there is actually an EV on the market today that can serve that route, essentially range capable without having to charge over the course of the working day. There is unfortunately no manual workaround for this. This requires an accurate and, more importantly, data-driven EV recommendation tool. And at Geotab, we have over 10 years experience within the EV space, and our electric vehicle suitability assessment platform helps to take the guesswork out of fleet transition. So the EVSA, as it is known, analyzes a fleet's data from 30 days up to 12 months and creates an electrification recommendation based on each vehicle's distinctive driving pattern. The best fit recommendation identifies which of the vehicles are the best candidates for the replacement by EVs. So the analysis will also include vehicle type, range capability, environmental benefits of switching to EVs by looking at carbon emission reductions. What we find is that it's rarely possible for a fleet to transition all vehicles to EVs straight away. And this may well change in the future, but at present, it's not yet the case. We see telematics data as critical to understanding the current state of a fleet and delivering a suitable EV transition plan. Transition, by its very definition, indicates that the switch from internal combustion engine to electric vehicles will take time in any fleet, and despite the targets being set by the government, should not be rushed. There is still time to get it right. And once EVs have been integrated into a fleet, it's very important to understand how to manage them. So electric fleet management and traditional fleet management have very many similarities, but at the same time, they're also very different. And whilst a fleet manager will want to continue monitoring traditional fleet metrics such as utilization, there are brand new data points to monitor with EVs, such as state of charge, charging session details, and for plug-in hybrids, electric miles versus fuel miles. And ideally, the mixed fleet of petrol and diesel vehicles, along with EVs, should be managed through one platform. There are three distinct benefits to this. Firstly, optimizing electric range through fuel efficiency measurement. Secondly, reporting on charging activities. And thirdly, using real-time information to make decisions about the fleet. To optimize the range, a key data point to consider is to look at the reporting of kilowatt hours per mile, or alternatively, the fuel efficiency of EVs. This allows for a comparison of the efficiencies of each vehicle and will help adjust operational behavior to increase the efficiency. Safe driving practices such as smooth braking and smooth acceleration can help increase the electric range of the vehicle. And obviously, the larger the range of the vehicle, the less time that will be spent charging. Reporting on charging activities is actually one of the biggest challenges faced by fleets currently. So there is a mix of ways that fleets can do this through charging station providers and electricity bills. However, this is only a partial solution. For a true equivalency to conventional assets, there needs to be accountability of each kilowatt hour charged for each vehicle, pretty much the same as you would with the number of gallons or liters of petrol for a petrol or diesel vehicle. And our platform reports this for each vehicle as a record from a charging session, along with the location of that charging session, the length of the session, and the kilowatt hour rate of that charging session, the starting state of charge, the end state of charge, and also the time. This allows a fleet to be fully available of all of the costs associated with charging a specific vehicle and ultimately a fleet. And a record of charging by vehicle shows you charging patterns for every different vehicle. And using telematics data, it is possible to understand when vehicles are charging to ensure that they are charging every day to maximize the electric range available to the driver and minimizing downtime. And the third benefit of having an all-in-one platform for electric and conventional vehicles is the ability to leverage real-time information on all vehicle types to help optimize a fleet's operating abilities. In conclusion, as commercial fleets begin their journey towards more sustainable ways of operating and beginning the transition to an EV future, data is not just a component to delivering success. It is the key component. But in order for data to influence, it must first be understood. We're now at the end of today's presentation. Thank you for your time, and please feel free to connect to continue the conversation.